I think my story is not that extraordinary, actually. It's not a whole lot different than what a lot of people are doing. And even though I don't think it's all that interesting to me, it still didn't stop me from turning it into a book that I plan to publish in the summer. So I'll kind of tell you a little bit how I got started. My wife, who planned to be here tonight, but couldn't because of all the traffic, she was in nursing school back in 2006, and I was looking for stuff to do. So for me, there are like two written places that I look for inspiration. Number one, obviously, is the Bible. And number two, right under that, is Men's Health Magazine. So I was reading Men's Health Magazine, and it said, what do you, if you're bored, if you're looking for something to do, you should start a blog. And this was 2006, as Jason said, I was in pharmaceutical sales. I was like, okay, sure. I was listening to Bob Stern on the ticket. He'd always say, go to my blog. I didn't know what that was. So I literally went to blogger.com and soon thereafter started a blog. If I had any idea I'd be speaking to you tonight, I would have named it something other than Dallas South blog, because that's not very interesting. Even though I had never heard the word Dallas South in that order before. You always hear about South Dallas and people get confused on what actually is South Dallas. But I did start a blog in 2006 with the intention of it being very local. It was kind of hyper-local before hyper-local was cool. I talked about potholes, I talked about local elections, and then very soon after, it got picked up on Pegasus News. And Pegasus News came to me, and it was the first time I realized that anyone besides my mother was reading the blog. And they came to me and said, hey, we've been reading your stuff for a couple of months, and we'd like to put you on our website. Basically, we copy and paste and put your post up, and then we would drive content to your website. If I had $1 for every time someone told me they were going to drive content to our website, I wouldn't really be rich. But we said, hey, why not? I was just honored to have the opportunity, and Pegasus News is a great partner. Soon thereafter, I started writing about a young lady, a girl actually, who was 14 at the time, in Paris, Texas. And she had gotten 1 to 7 years in the TYC, Texas Youth Facility, for pushing down a hall monitor in Paris, Texas. And so I started writing about that, and there were a couple of things that was unique about that. Number one, with Paris, Texas being, of course, as many of you know, the second largest Paris in the world, it happens to also be my hometown. And so when African Americans started writing about what was going on in Paris, there was this outrage about what was going on, and a lot of folks at that time didn't know that there were other bloggers of color who were out there writing about these issues, and there was kind of this joint outrage, and everybody kind of connected over this issue at the same time. And during that time, I met over email Howard Witt, who wrote the story for the Chicago Tribune, which was the first national paper to write about what happened in Paris, Texas. And it was a really big deal for a traditional journalist to reach out to a blogger, to someone who was in the online space. And I think he was one of the first journalists anywhere who really started seeing the value of potentially tapping into the resources that bloggers could provide to what he was doing. So by the time he also wrote the story about Gina Six in the Chicago Tribune, hadn't been written in the Houston Chronicle, hadn't been written in the Dallas Morning News, he started pushing his story out to the bloggers. And we had it, which is the custom now, we had a story before it actually hit the paper, but it really, again, was a big deal for someone in the traditional media to reach out in that sort of way. And Howard wrote an article for the Chicago Tribune, which had 3 people in it. This was before the rally in Gina Six about what happened and why people were so upset about the 6 young men who were facing these stiff penalties for a fight at school. And he quoted 3 people in that article. He quoted James Rucker from Color of Change, who was, which that organization is like a MoveOn.org for African Americans. He quoted Al Sharpton, and he quoted somebody named Shawn Williams for Dallas South blog. And I have to say that's when Dallas South became a national blog. People picked it up. The NPR picked up the blog. NBC 90 News I was on the next day. And so my desire to be hyper-local, it really changed after that. And so here we are. We covered the 2008 election, and again, you really did get to see that even though you may have intentions of one thing, there are people all over the country who are feeling, actually literally all over the world, who are feeling the same way that you might feel about a very local issue. And so I think that as we come here now and see all these students, it's a tough time. It's a tough time for the industry, but it's a very exciting time, and it's very encouraging if you do have a chance to spend some time with students. And one thing that we'll see a lot, I think, moving forward is collaboration. I think we'll see a lot of collaborations as we are starting to see now. In the hip-hop culture, there's a lot of collaborations. There's artists like Nicki Minaj and Drake who did so many collaborations that they had actually become household names before they actually even released their own records. We have Snoop Dogg, who hadn't really released much of his own work lately, but he still ends up on records with, just about Katy Perry. He's got a record with. I was doing some research again with my son, of course, and he's on a record with Big Time Rush, as I saw on Nickelodeon. Again, doing research because I want to be diligent. Last night I was watching America's Best Dance Crew, and I heard Big Boy from Outkast was on a song with Kesha. And so I think collaboration is going to be a big part of what we see moving forward. And so it's really important for students to already start thinking with the end in mind and thinking about what kind of collaborations we can start doing. If you look at the collaboration between the Texas Tribune and the New York Times, it's fabulous with their content appearing there a couple of days a week. The Austin American Statesman is doing great work with PolitiFact. PolitiFact is a Pulitzer Prize winning organization. And I consider also, I consider freelancers to be collaborators because you kind of work with different people. And I've written myself even for D Magazine. I wrote recently for D Home Magazine. I can say for sure when I was president of the NAACP at Texas A&M, I didn't see anything like writing an article about landscaping on a straight lane as part of my future. But in this new media age, it kind of makes strange bedfellows. And so an article in D Home Magazine actually been one of the ones that more people have kind of come up and said, hey, I really like that article. So we can't put people in different groups. We can't say this is broadcast and this is print, this is radio and this is online. Not only are the actual agencies doing a little bit of everything, but each individual is doing a little bit as well. I know I was at Eddie Bernice Johnson's office a couple of weeks ago, and I was having lunch with one of her staffers that was in town, and as we came back, we heard this loud explosion. And we looked down the street, and about a block away, and it looked like literally the street was on fire. And so we looked down the road, and we saw people jumping out of the hole. It was actually a construction project that had happened, and they had tapped into an electrical line that exploded, and it was on fire. And somebody was still in the hole. He came out, he was burning, and he was burned. He was burned. And his coworkers went, and we went down. I went down to try to see if there was anything that I could do to help. And so as he was about 10 feet from the hole, it started exploding again. And we started running, trying to get away. And they rolled him off to the side. And then he was safe. We were far away, and my immediate instinct was to get my phone out and start recording. And so I took my phone out, and I shot video of this explosion. And it really is kind of part of the skill set that we see will become part of the future because of the tools. Our phones are made for this. And the iPad 2 is made, you can use GarageBand, you can tape an interview, you can record it, you can make a podcast, all while you're sitting at a table. And so from using the tools and the skills to collaboration, before I put it on my website, I called Channel 8 and I said, would you be interested in that footage? And they ran it. I said, the only stipulation is please use courtesy of DallasSouthNews.org, and within a couple of hours it was up on their website. Up on the news. It was part of John McKay's newscast at 6. So again, you have to think in terms of tools, also think in terms of collaboration. I definitely think of Dallas Morning News as a collaborator. Although I did write an article for them today, although because I'm not yet a $9.99 subscriber, I can't tell you what their article says. It was good. We'll just have to see, I guess. But what they're doing is, the experiment that they're making is being watched all over across the country. I can say with my work with Pointer Institute that there are a lot of people that are really, really hoping that the experiment is a success, and experimentation is part of this future as well. I commend the Dallas Morning News for experimentation, for what they're doing online, for their Neighbors Gold product. I think is a great experiment, and not only experimentation, but entrepreneurial journalism is going to be important. Entrepreneurial journalism and community-created content. We like to, I think, as a society, and again, I'm not a professional journalist per se. I do the work of journalism, but a lot of people want to discredit this because it only happens online, to discredit this person as a blogger. A lot of times I try to stay away from the word blog because it allows people to put people in a box that they might not really be in. Oh, he's a blogger. Oh, she just blogs online. She started out as a blogger. When it really doesn't matter at this point. It's really about the content. It's really about the consumer. And so community-created content, entrepreneurial journalism is where we are, and it's a big deal. Dallas-Fort Worth is really right for really entrepreneurial journalists who really want to go out and make it happen. I can say for sure that the advertising dollars are out there. If you shake the trees, they will fall off. I've spent so much time trying to overcompensate for my lack of journalism skills that I kind of forgot that I was a sales guy. When I kind of went back and started making calls and asking people to buy ads, they actually said, where do I sign? And so I can say firsthand that, the opportunity is here. We don't see entrepreneurial journalism in Texas like you do in other places, like, for instance, Seattle. I think one of probably my favorite entrepreneurial venture is West Seattle Blog with Tracy Record and her husband. And we're seeing mom and pop shops, literally. She and her husband, he's selling ads, she's doing the journalism, and they're really making an impact in West Seattle. In Ann Arbor, you see Mary Morgan and her husband making a big difference because their newspaper went out of business, and it was kind of like, okay, what's next? What do we do? And there was an opportunity for them. We see a lot of entrepreneurial examples in California. The Voice of San Diego, which is a nonprofit using a similar model as ours, is something that I really respect, as well as something like the Bay Citizen. So a lot of those models could be used here in different pockets, and we're seeing some of it here, but not as much as I think that we could. I can say for sure that I don't know what it's like to go to J school. I'm not a journalist by trade, but I do know what it's like to see your industry change. When I first started working in pharmaceutical sales, it was really good times, really good times. We were taking doctors out to great restaurants. We were playing golf with doctors and their physician assistants. We had season tickets for the Mavericks. We had season tickets for the Rangers. Really, really good times. But things changed. The industry changed. The way that the industry was regulated changed, and people had to adapt. I saw my friends lose their jobs, as many of you had. I lost my job, as some of you have. But I was fortunate enough to find a passion that I could pursue and work within my purpose. I can't say for sure today whether or not the experiment, how it's going to work on the other side. I can say that, based on this year, we're looking very good. Looking very good with Dallas South News. We use the same model from a business standpoint as KERA, and parenthetically, I told Jason, I'm really interested to see how my daughter's going to react. She's 2, and I'm on KERA's Think right now, and I'm wearing the same thing that she just saw me in. So I'm really going to see, she's going to be freaked out when she sees me on TV, like right now, and she knows I'm not with her. I'm really interested to see how she handles it. But, I think that we're in a really interesting time, and it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for consumers, and I think if we all focus on our consumers want news more than they've ever wanted. They just don't always want to read it on a piece of paper. And they have more choices than they've ever wanted. And so I think if everyone can focus on the job, if everyone can focus on, and again, this is part, I guess, from hanging around the Poynter Institute too long, but if everyone can focus on the values that journalism really is about, and not just the business model, which is important, but also the values of journalism, what this great business is built upon, I think everything will be better on the other end. I can't say that there will be as many people doing the job, and I for sure don't feel like people will be making as much at it. But I do think that the public will be better served by the students who are here because they understand that what they're doing really is for the public good. I thank you for your time, and I think I might have a couple of questions or something like that, but thank you.